Well, good morning, everyone. We come to our fifth and final interview this morning with Roger and Kevin. We're so pleased that you are with us and willing to share a little bit about your story. So Roger and Kevin, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are?
Sure, I can go first. My name's Kevin, and I was born and raised in Michigan, so originally from the Midwest, and kind of who I am, especially as it relates to this conversation. I was raised in the United Methodist Church. In fact, my grandfather was a Methodist minister. And church was a pretty kind of big aspect of our lives growing up. For us, that often kind of largely involved kind of service and social justice related issues. I left the church in my adult life, and over the years, as I kind of continued to develop in my spirituality and explore different kind of religious homes, dappled in a number of different churches, other United Methodist churches, Unitarian, Quaker. Also, I'm new to the area, relatively new. I moved here about 4 months ago, and we'd been planning the move, but we did not anticipate that it would coincide perfectly with a global pandemic. So here we are. Professionally, my background's in K-12 education and nonprofit work.
And my name is Roger, and I am originally, grew up in Trinidad in the Caribbean, and then came to the US for college and stayed on. So I've actually been in the US for a longer period of time in my life than in Trinidad. So I am a pediatrician, and I work in the medical center. Love working with kids, love kids. And in terms of spirituality during my childhood, so I grew up in the Catholic Church. So Trinidad is heavily Christian, heavily Catholic. So grew up in the Catholic Church, and as is sort of fairly typical, kind of wandered away from the church during my teenage years, but then came back. And when I was attending college in Atlanta, I joined the Catholic Church there and sort of really focused on spiritual growth. And after moving to Houston, I went around to a number of different churches, both Catholic and Protestant churches, and eventually settled at Lakewood Church. And I've been attending Lakewood Church for probably over a decade now, and continued my spiritual growth there. But like life, it's a journey, it's a process of continual growth. So, for the past few months, especially during the pandemic, I've been sort of feeling the urge to explore different churches and see what else is out there, and meet different people, and just kind of expand my connections in Houston. I have a fairly tight-knit group of friends, consider them almost family, because I'm the only one here from my family in Houston. So most of my family is in Trinidad, and I have a sister in New Jersey, but it's great to have friends, and always can do with more friends.
Sure. Well, that's a great transition to our next question. That desire to sort of look around at other churches suggests that you're sort of more aware of different spiritual hungers. So if you had to answer that question, what do you hunger for spiritually? What would you each say to that?
Want me to go first?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, it's funny. One of the things, I guess I could say that on some level, I do kind of hunger for some things that feel kind of familiar about my church experience growing up. There are times when I will be sitting in a pew of a church, and I'll know the hymns, and the rituals and the routines will be familiar to me. And I will find kind of meaning in that. There will be something poignant about that for me. But kind of probably more than that, and I should probably preface this by saying, like, I don't fully know, I think I'm still trying to figure that out in terms of what it looks like. I think what I'm clearer about is the kind of ultimate kind of feeling or experience that I have, that I'm kind of hungering for. And when I think about that, some of the kind of words that come to mind for me are feeling a deeper sense of presence, feeling a deeper sense of connection, feeling a deeper sense of belonging, a deeper sense of love. And when I think about kind of what it looks like to get there, I think that's looked like a lot of different things for me, but I'm clearer about kind of the feeling that I'm ultimately kind of looking for.
Yeah. And so you ask, what do I hunger for? I hunger for a continued growth in this, knowing that I am made in the image of God, and God loves me, and just being able to ground myself in that, and then grow from that as I walk, and then trying to see God in every interaction that I have, trying to see God in other people, and sort of living life in that way. So it'll touch, it can potentially touch every aspect of my life. So earlier we were talking about forgiveness, but forgiveness is important. Or if I how do I actively show love to my neighbor and sort of live out the gospel? Just figuring out ways to keep my feet on the ground, walk, and live the gospel. So that's kind of what I hunger for.
That's lovely. And what about as a couple? What do you guys hunger for spiritually as a couple?
So a long time ago, I read a book called The Road Less Traveled by M. Scott Peck, and he gave a definition of love, and it's the willingness to extend oneself for one's own or for another's spiritual growth. I think as a couple, I want to be able to continue to get to know Kevin, continue to get to accept Kevin, and place no expectations on him, but continue to love him, actively love him, and figure out ways to do that and show up for him in a relationship. And then part of that is kind of our own individual spiritual journey, but also our journey as a couple towards that continued relationship with God. So as a couple, I think it's finding a space where we can discover how God shows up in our lives, and discover how we can kind of see God in each other, so that we can continue to grow and build a strong foundation for a relationship.
Ditto. Next question? No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. And what I love about that, some of what I hear in that is that, that's both kind of this individual journey that we're on to kind of deepen our own kind of spirituality. And we're also on this kind of exciting and enriching journey to figure out kind of what that looks like together. And I think that was part of what drew us both to each other, I think, is that we both kind of had a commitment, had an interest and a commitment in that together.
Mhm.
And I think I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Oh, I would just say that what I kind of really appreciated about what you shared too was that, it's very like active, it's about us kind of really actively showing up for one another in kind of loving ways to help one another grow in that area. It's not kind of a passive thing, or it's not about platitudes, that it's like part of kind of the work of our relationship.
That's lovely. Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
And lots of grace as well.
Lots of grace.
You have to share grace with me.
Yes.
Every day.
Lots of grace to go around.
He does have to extend a lot of grace to me.
Well, last question. If you could change one or two things about church, the experience of church, what would you change?
For me, I think I would want church. I value the ritual in church, however that shows up. So some churches are very ritualistic and grounded in practices that are hundreds of years old, versus other churches are ritualistic but grounded in practices that are less old. But I think sort of I would like to be at a church where the rituals are used as a conduit towards a deeper experience of God, and not just have the rituals be in and of themselves an end point, but kind of an entryway as opposed to an end point into sort of the vastness of God, the vastness of the love of God, the vastness of the experience of God. I think the rituals sort of connect us, but then how then do we sort of walk through and then stay there and then take that out into the world?
I think what I would say is, again, I don't know that I'm always as clear about kind of what it has to look like or doesn't, like, can't look like. And I'm more clear about kind of the thing that ultimately I feel and experience through it. And when I think about, like, I think I mentioned things related to, presence and love and connection and being part of something larger than myself. And I think what I would say I wish was different sometimes in my experience in the church was that kind of the opposite of those things. I think, yeah.
That's great. Thank you both so much. You've given us a lot to think about, and I really appreciate your willingness to share your insights. Thank you for your time.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you so much for inviting us to share and giving us space in the church.
Yeah.